What? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors, and everybody in between.
Once again, it is Thursday in Vienna, which means it's time for
It Should Be About
Something.
Good.
That's right. Today is March 24th, 2022.
It is indeed. This is episode 66.
66.
66. The 66th.
66th.
66th. The
66th.
The sixth sheep is sick.
Good. Now that we've got that out of the way.
The Sixths. A band called The Sixths. Sorry. 66!
Woo!
Our show is on. And we do this every Thursday. So thank you very much for joining us here today. If you are joining us for the first time, go ahead and jump on the chat and say hello. And maybe, just maybe, if you wanna, tell us how your week was while Michael and I
update each other about how our week was.
Okay.
So Jim.
Yeah, Michael.
How was your week?
How was your week?
You go first.
Okay. My week was pretty good. Interestingly, it feels like a long time since the last time we did this.
That's probably because we were doing all those things in between.
There was a lot of stuff in between. Mm-hmm. We've been rehearsing for the English Lovers' new show, Down the Rabbit Hole. Which
story.
Is super story.
Within a 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 story.
And that's actually been very interesting rehearsals.
Yes.
Challenging and interesting. I'm psyched for the show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we've got our very special guest, Mr. Jeff, is coming from Prague, Mr. Jeff Koch.
He's already been here to rehearse with us.
That's right.
On one day, yes.
And so that's super cool. What else is happening? We also, Michael, have been working with the wonderful Johannes Grensfurt.
That's right.
Who...
The wonderful and crazy.
Yeah, just the right crazy.
Crazy in all the right kind
love
of ways.
Love it. I've actually been a fan of his for a long time.
Yeah, me too.
And the work he did with Monochrome, and he's done just a ton of really very cool things. And
He's a real worker bee.
He really is. He has got a work ethic, man. He's on top of it. And his lady friend's no slouch either, man.
No, she just did that porn festival.
She's
the Vienna Porn
super
Festival
cool.
at Chicanida Kino and Top Kino.
Right?
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah,
So anyway, we've been over at the studios where we do our Sox Talk Politics and working with our buddy Fabian over there, who is just a sweetheart of a dude. Love that guy. And we've been working on a movie with Johannes at Fabian's place.
I don't know how much we can tell you
I don't know
about
if
the
we can.
movie,
Yeah,
whether
maybe
we can
we
tell you what
should.
the movie's called. But we get to be characters in the movie without being visible in the movie.
It's a really crazy concept, but I think it's going to be awesome.
It is really crazy. It's a really crazy concept.
I'm super psyched for it. I think it's going to be great. Anyway, big shout out to those guys because the work has been terrific, and we're about halfway through with that, and we're going to keep plugging away at it.
We spent most of Monday recording,
Yeah.
and figuring out how to do some things like
You can't say.
I can't say.
You can't
but
say.
Man,
But
like it's one of those things where when you get interviewed like 20 years later in your career, you can say, well, when I got into that project, I didn't know I was gonna
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've been known for that ever since.
And I think there's a little bit of innovation happening in the way we've been And I think has been really with the
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think we should slurp to that.
Yeah.
So, if you're joining us for the first time, this is how we do it on It Should Be About Something. In order to mask the fact that Jim and I are terrible drinkers, we do, where to go? We do this.
Where did you put it?
Yeah, it's underneath the button that was renamed last week, so
Oh, no!
we'll see what happens.
Wrong button.
You just got factoid.
Oh no!
Wrong button
You're
again.
welcome.
That was the wrong button.
There we are. Make me a new drink. I've finished this one already.
All right then.
So,
Fuck it.
what?
I put the Isbaz vodka back into the freezer and forgot to grab it. Sorry.
If you're joining us for the first time, this show is so famous that we have our own brand of vodka.
If you're joining us for the first time, this is not the first time something like this has happened.
No, in fact, if you're joining us for the first time, this kind of shit happens on the show all the time. In fact, a large portion of this show is about Jim and myself dealing with the technicalities of doing this show. Anyway, moving on. I see we have some new people on here. There's like Fabian Mikenda. Hello.
Say hi to that person.
Pink F. Seeing you here for the first time. Nice to have you here. We got some updates here from Marcus.
All right. Let's hold on. Let me get in there.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Jungle. Rachel.
Hello, slurpers.
Okay.
Hello, Monica.
Rachel. So say hello to everybody. Who
Philly
else
girl's
is
here.
Philly girl's here. Pavlov's dog is here. Christina Lasmulik is here. Hello.
Follower Clay's ready.
Is ready. And Fabian, cool. Hello. Nice to see you.
Zuza Crutch in the house.
Souza. Dang. And now they've got a whole thing happening with
TV 10 to seconds behind, 15 seconds behind phone.
Marcos found out he had to install a whole new electrical circuit in the kitchen because nobody saw the need of an electrical stove coming.
Oh, this was pre-Putin times, right?
Oh God! What district is that new apartment in?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks, man. Yeah, those are just when you think your bits and bobs. Wasn't it last week that he had his bits and bobs and the nickel and dime shit at the end that he had to get through and then something like that. God damn it.
Electrifying.
Yeah, electrifying. I'm making you a new drink with the Isbaz
Isbaz vodka.
Yeah, check it out. Isbaz vodka.
Yes.
Let's hug it out.
Drink it first, hug it out later.
Drink it first, hug it out
So
later.
waving at the screen,
Is Verena in the house?
Verena's in the house.
Excellent, excellent. Very cool.
Marcus is in the 14th district.
Well, he says it's in the 14th, but I think we all know that it's in 1930s Prague.
Because that's where the substance comes from. That's when the building was
That's when
erected and where it was erected.
Yeah. Because they saw no need for an electrical stove coming in 1930s Prague.
Yeah.
So, what else have we got going on? Good news of the last week. Boss is paying for an e-roller. Susanna, are you kidding me? I have to admit, and I have to let everybody know, I have an e-roller.
Yeah.
I
You've
got
been
it.
greased lightning since your birthday.
I live in the future because it's electric, and I got it as a gift from a bunch of nice friends. And today, I ran into one of the neighbors, my neighbors in my house, and she is an ex-nurse and works at the National Library or the Archive, I can't remember. One of the two. She's a professional woman, and she's got an e-scooter, but it's bigger. It's got like all-terrain tires. It has a removable battery.
Ooh.
So that the
she can park
scooter-
it downstairs and take the battery
The
out for
chassis
charging.
stays the same, but she can charge the battery, separately.
Yeah.
And I think that
So she can get a parking spot for her scooter.
well, what she
Just
tipped
leave
me
it
off to was that, I mean, it's not that big. No, it's not. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, haha. But what she tipped me on to was something I hadn't even thought about. That my scooter is of that type where the battery is built in, and so once it goes through its life cycles of charging, you can't replace the battery. Now,
Is that
maybe
true?
that's how she put it to me. Which is why she went from the kind that I had to the kind that she has.
So she's already wrecked one. So let's just put this in layman's terms, okay? These scooters have been around not long enough for the batteries to actually go fut. So she's already had one of these and wrecked it, right? She hit the curb, or she broke it.
I don't know. I mean,
And then the sales guy, when she went to get a replacement for the one she broke, the sales guy was like, "Yeah, well, you should get this because it's you can replace the battery." And so we'll see what breaks first, the scooter or the battery.
Okay. I feel like your assumption of how this went down might be different if you had met this woman. I don't think she wrecked it. I think I believe
Well, I
her.
know several people who've wrecked their scooters.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
surprised yours has lasted this long, actually. So,
It's your vote of confidence that.
No, actually, you have my full vote of confidence about your driving. I actually think that the batteries will outlast the scooters. Because we live in Vienna.
Right.
And
It's gonna get stolen or wrecked before the battery runs out?
Well, we have cobblestones, we have lots of uneven pavements, there's winter weather, there's salt.
I hear you.
I think that battery is actually going to outlast the mechanical bits on the bike.
Your words to God's ear is all I have to say. I hope my scooter lasts for a long time because I love every minute of it.
Yeah, and in 25 years it's going to be a vintage scooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course Verena broke her elbow with one of those last year. She was probably in a relationship. And
I know somebody who broke both his hands
yeah.
doing that.
Oh, God.
And he spent 6 weeks in bed like this.
Poor guy.
Being spoon-fed.
Couldn't pee. It just
Couldn't do
the
anything.
worst. The worst. But Susanna is getting an e-Vespa. That's like a big one. Those are like what the
that big?
delivery dudes what the delivery dudes drive around. Some of them, There's like not the bikes, but it's like a Vespa. You look.
Yeah,
thing.
but
you're sitting
but you can
instead of you're not in the
ride
standing
them,
position.
But you can ride them on the bicycle lanes, right? So
You ride all of them on the bicycle lanes. Oh, but you're saying because it's so big.
No.
Yeah, you can still ride it on the bicycle lanes.
There's a thing.
Probably.
There's a cutoff point where you can no longer ride one of those electrical things on a bicycle lane.
Right.
Like you can ride these little e-scooter things that the delivery guys use, and I'm not actually sure how legal it is, but they travel against the flow of traffic on bicycle lanes, like they use all the bicycle lanes.
Yeah.
Right. And with a full-sized e-scooter or e-motorcycle, you would not allow to use those bicycles.
Right.
So, but yeah, nice.
I
Whatever.
don't know. I know that in Amsterdam, on the bike paths, which there are plenty, of course, they have actual motored scooters, and I've actually seen those like cars for drunk people, the little tiny cars for drunk on the bike lanes in Amsterdam, because it's to a certain, probably whatever it is, to a certain horsepower or
interesting
top speed.
Wow,
I don't know.
That's also like crazy. That's dangerous. Drunk people in drunk people vehicles on bicycle lanes is dangerous.
Yeah.
But that you can, the fact that you can use the standard e-scooters like yours on the bicycle lanes in Vienna, I think is great.
Yeah, I love it.
And I mean, Salzburg is great because they've got super nice bicycle lanes in some of the areas, not always.
Yeah.
But some of the areas, like down the river and through that park. That's
But
very nice.
that said, Vienna does have a lot of great biking paths, and it has room for improvement, but it is above, it is head and shoulders above other places I've been. Nothing compares, however, so far to Oldenburg in Germany. Mm-hmm. Oldenburg has got it going on.
Really?
Just kilometers of pristine bike paths, wide, going all through the whole city. It was amazing.
Oldenburg's about the size of St. Pölten, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It was great.
I'm sure it must be amazing.
It was fantastic. So that's how we catch up with our week. You all should know that It Should Be About Something is a show that comes to you in 3 parts. We call them chapters, and we're just going to
plunge right into it.
Plunge into it.
On the something you couldn't live without.
On the something you couldn't live without.
It's not a someone, it's definitely an object.
It's a thing. So, first off the top of your head, if you're on the chat, go ahead. If you're not on the chat, real quick, shout it at the screen. Maybe we'll feel it. I ran into an old friend. He's a wonderful improvising musician in the improv scene. And he said, hey, I'm super into It Should Be About Something. And I was like, that's so cool. It was really cool. And I said, have you been on the chat? You should say hi. And he was like, no, that's not my thing. And I was like, okay, I get that.
Not my thing.
It's not my thing. And I totally get that. So thank you to all the folks that aren't on the chat. We get it. It's not your thing, but we're really psyched that you keep coming back. So, what's your first answer? What's the something you couldn't live without? Boom. Say it right now. Ready? Something you couldn't live without. 1, 2, 3.
Guitar.
Ooh, that was really good.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, sorry, I'm not ready.
1, 2, 3.
Music. It's too broad a concept. It's not a. It's not
maybe
a
it's not
thing.
an object thing, but it's an interesting concept. I guess. Okay, good.
I guess so.
Well, I mean, check out Zusa here is like chocolate. It's a food stuff. I mean, it's a thing.
Yeah, but it's a something that you
Everybody
couldn't live
has a different definition of what a thing is.
Well, I guess. Well, things are just
what you want them to be. It's your thing. It's
yeah.
your thing.
Things are inanimate objects and concepts, right?
Possibly. Well, at least according to the Isbaz chat, and Isbaz chat is our Bible.
Right. Not the so I get it. Verena said water. Yeah, totally. But I think we're. Well, I guess what Michael's looking for at the moment is in the vein of that thing. So I know you are a collector of guitars.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
Can you choose one of those children?
I was thinking about that when I came here, and yes, I think I found, like on the way here, I found a way that I could choose one of those children if I had to.
Okay.
And right now, the one that I choose, I think it would just always be the one that I'm playing the most.
Right. Okay.
So depending on what phase I'm in and what I'm doing musically and whatever, that's the one that I'd choose.
Right. So which one is it now?
I definitely couldn't. If you told me I could only have one for the rest of my life, that would be difficult.
That would be difficult. But if you
if I have to choose one now, like
you had to save one from the fire.
Well, if I had to save one from the fire, then I guess that it would be the one that I've been carrying around with me for 38 years.
Right.
That's the one that I'd probably save from the fire.
But the one that you couldn't live without because you're living with it, it's not you're surviving with it, or you know what I mean.
So the one that I choose right now is the one that I'm playing the most. Yeah.
Which is which one?
Which is my silent.
Right. A silent guitar.
It's not so silent, actually.
Oh, he's so good. If you could just hear it. Dude, so when I was
that scene in Spinal Tap where they're interviewing the guitar player.
Yeah.
And,
sustain.
And he's got all those guitars in his guitar room, and he's saying, well, if it were playing now, then you could just listen to that sustain. It's not playing. Yeah, well, if it were playing, yeah.
So when I was in high school...
No, it can't be touched. Don't touch it.
When I was in high
school... Never been played.
There would be these, like, metal dudes that would hang out in the lobby of the high school. And I remember being a freshman, and, you know, the guys with long hair, you know...
Ripped off
they smoked. They had, you know, jean jackets with no sleeves, you know, and prison tattoos, facial hair.
Self-painted prison tattoos with like a
no. Like they would stick them themselves, you know. And there was like a clique of these dudes that weren't just like the metal heads. They were actually musicians, and they had a band. And I remember there was this one guy, he had the most amazing rock scream. You know, it wasn't until like 3 years later when I heard Kurt Cobain that I thought, I mean, this guy had the best rock scream. And he like was one of those dudes who took singing lessons and you know, really was gonna be that LA scene kind of thing. And these guys were always down there. But there would be these dudes who were just like not quite them. They were a little on the outside of the group, but they'd have their guitars too. And I remember there was this one dude who would always be like playing and then trying to, you know, tap. But it's just dry, right? It's just a dry PV, you know, guitar. And he'd be like, yeah, if I was plugged in, man, if I was plugged in, oh man, I'm shredding now.
So he's brought an electric guitar without an amplifier, and they're standing in the hallway, and he's doing all these things.
No, he's like sitting down on a heater, which is next to a big glass window that looks out onto the driveway when you're coming up to the high school. So it's kind of cold and informal, and where they hang out, because just outside they were still allowed to smoke, you know. But just that scene of dudes just being like, yeah, this was plugged in, man. And so I just imagine you with your silent guitar going, oh, if you could just hear this, this is amazing. This is amazing.
Well, I play with headphones, you know.
Oh, of course you do. I've got a girlfriend. She's from Canada. You've never met her. She goes to a different school.
Do you wear headphones when you bone her?
I'm a great lover, I bet. Yeah, so, okay, but I have, okay.
So I actually think it doesn't actually matter really which one it is.
Right. But that's the one right now.
I think if it wasn't any one of those, if my house burned down and all my guitars were trashed, I'd have to get a guitar. That's the thing I don't want to live without.
I hear you. So, but it's interesting what you said.
Actually, if my house did burn down, all my guitars would not be trashed, because I've depoted them in different places all over Vienna.
Well, you have to diversify your portfolio.
You know that guitar I borrowed you 10 years, I left at your place 10 years ago so that I had a guitar to play when I came around. I need it back.
So, that wasn't the interesting thing. The thing that I thought was interesting that you said was that at different periods of your life, that thing is different.
Yes.
So I remember as a kid, and I'm going to say I was 6, 5, 4, 4 or 5, and I just have this very distinct memory of this. I had gone, my parents had taken me to the circus. At the circus, I got a beautiful pirate sword. It was plastic. It had plastic jewels on the hilt and the handle. It had a white plastic blade that had sort of a Phillips head shape, and it slid into a black plastic scabbard, and it was brilliant. And then it
was it really? It was so it had 4 little blades.
Yeah. It was like
So
it was
actually
mostly flat, but had that Phillips head sort of thing. So it had like a little runner on the top of the blade, so that when it went into the scabbard, it really, you had to have it centered in there, so it slid right in there.
But was it really a pirate's sword?
For me, it was a pirate.
Oh,
I don't
I
know.
see, okay.
I'm 5,
Okay.
okay? I'm 4 or
Yeah,
5.
right.
But I had this thing,
Right.
and I loved it,
Gotcha.
right? And then the blade broke.
Of course. That's
Of course,
the weakest
of
point.
course.
But even on real swords,
It's the
that's
weakest point.
It's the weakest point, yeah.
And then, I don't know, the gold paint on the handle started to go away, and that left. And all I had left was the scabbard. Now, at this point, I'm, I don't know, 6 maybe? It's a while later. Maybe I'm 9 or 10. It's a while later. And I remember my mom tried to throw that scabbard away.
Right.
And it was irrational. It was a piece of junk. I didn't need, but it was mine. And I could not live without having that thing.
Right.
It was the
I
thing I
understand.
had to have.
I
And it was
understand.
completely irrational.
You've progressed a long way.
No,
No?
I don't know.
Do you still hang on to things irrationally like that?
I got you with me still, don't I?
That's not a thing.
Oh, right. I suppose.
And if I
sure.
were your thing, you should take better care of me.
I need more washing. I could use a good polish.
More paint.
I could scrape some of the barnacles off the undercarriage.
Totally. I scratch up my bottom every time. Yeah, whatever. I change my trousers.
So, I think in some ways I do. It's that weird balance, right? Between hanging on to things for archival purposes, for a feeling of consistency or continuality, a feeling of history, and streamlining your shit. And I think, when you live with somebody, everybody else's stuff is shit, and
Sure.
your shit is stuff.
Yeah. Totally.
So finding that balance with, like living with somebody is always is a thing. I think I've gotten better about it. I think I've gotten much better about not hanging on to irrational things that have lost their utility.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've
I'm
done
in
that.
a bit of a phase right now, actually, of figuring out which things I want, or which things are worthwhile keeping. Because I'm Mr. DIY and Mr. Project, I kind of gather these projects. And some of them are pretty easy to achieve. Like I've been carrying around a record player that I took in for a service, and the guy who serviced it fucked it up.
Right.
And then I had to buy another record player.
Right.
So I've had this it was the record player that I bought, I think, for my 35th birthday. Or
Oh, I
something like that.
remember that. Oh, yeah,
Bought
you
myself
were
a
down
record
to-
player. I was
yeah,
like, this is the last record player I'm going to buy in my life, and I'm going to just go out and really spend a lot of money on a really good record player.
Right.
And it worked for 10 years, and then I had to take it in for a service, and the guy broke it. And he gave it back to me broken, and I said, this is broken, can't you hear that it's humming?
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't hear that.
Oh, Jesus.
So I took it somewhere else, and they were like, oh yeah, I can hear it humming, but we can't fix that. So, yeah, basically, I was, okay, fine, I'll just do it myself.
Right.
No big deal. But I've now had this record player in this
State of repair.
for, I don't know, let's say 4 years.
Right.
And now I'm in a phase in my life where I desperately need to get rid of stuff and find space and organize the shit in my life.
Yeah.
So the record player is going out.
You have to give up on it. You gotta.
I've got to give up on the project. So, and this is my new thing, right? It's like, if you don't get round to the project in a year or two, the project has got to go out the window, because you're probably never going to get round to it.
Well, that's the thing.
And the thing is, maybe there are those projects that you can carry around with you for a long time, and then you can finally get round to them.
Yeah.
But you can do 2 or 3 of those in your lifetime.
I suppose. You know, it's like, it reminds me of that old joke of a guy is walking through the countryside and sees a dude. I'm fucking this joke up. Anyway, guy finds a dude in an outhouse throwing money into the shithole. The guy says, "What the hell are you doing throwing money in the shithole?" And the guy says, "Well, I dropped $1 down there, but I'm not going in for so little money."
Yeah. Yeah, that's the bit of too big to break kind of thing.
Well, it's a sunken cost fallacy.
Sunken cost fallacy. Yeah.
So, all right, I hear you on all of that, and giving up on that thing and saying, all right, I'm calling it quits. I'm just gonna let it go. That's tough. That's tough, because for so long it's, that thing that you didn't want to live without. I have another thing that I couldn't live without, and that is a dishwasher. I don't ever want to live without a dishwasher.
Yeah, I hear you. On a practical level, that's probably the thing that I wouldn't want to live without either.
I mean, I think I could get around.
Well, public transport.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if I could. I wouldn't like it, but I think I could get around not having a clothes washing machine.
Oh, no way. No. Been there, done that. So I definitely want the washer more than the dishwasher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Okay. Yeah.
No, fucking washing the dishes is a no-brainer. And it's way easier, way less time than washing your clothes by hand.
Oh, I wouldn't wash my clothes by hand.
Oh, you take them to the dry cleaners?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I see. Okay.
I did that all the time. When I lived in Boston, I had all my stuff washed, laundered, and dry cleaned at this one place. And these two dudes, a couple, cha-cha queens, who ran the place, they were super, super funny. And they're like, "Oh, Yim, okay, we've got your stuff." And they would invite me to the drag show all the time. I got rollerblades, and I went in one time, and he was like, "Oh, Yim, it's very difficult to get blood out of your clothes, Gene." And I said, "Oh, don't worry, Jorge. I only rollerblade naked." Oh, Gene. They were very funny. I love those dudes. He was really small and thin and adrette and had like a little Vincent Price mustache, and she was sort of round and like a Mexican mama, with longer hair, and I went to one of their shows.
Like the Rescuers.
Yeah. I remember going to one of their shows, and she did this whole number. I can't remember what her name was. Did this whole number about her pussy, and it was so weird and so funny, and had this like big a blow up, big blow up pussy that then she would kind of like, it was like inflated with hot air, and then it was like she'd slowly bring it down, and then she had this other like really hairy codpiece thing, was dancing around like this. I'm just flashing on these memories. I don't know. It was the 90s. Fuck it. Whatever.
Yeah. Everybody's got their thing, that they can't do without.
So if I didn't have a washing
machine, and pussies full of
hot air. I didn't have a washing machine, I would have missed out on that.
I gotcha. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Or however that sentence should have worked. So let's go to the chat and find out what these things people can't live without. Let's see. Water. Okay. Pincette. Yeah, that's a tool. That's a tool that would really suck to live without.
Marcus is like spoon.
I wouldn't want to live where there's no forest nearby. Yeah. That's a tough thing to live without. Interesting. Books would be hard to live without. That's a good one. Air, water, She's from, and then her name is, okay, they're talking about that. And then her name is Lola. She was a showgirl with the I can't remember the words.
Her name's Regina. She's from Alberta.
Her name's Regina.
She's Canadian and she's from Alberta.
It rhymes with clitoris.
Although Regina's in Saskatchewan, isn't it?
It sounds like clitoris.
Saskatchewan sounds like clitoris as well.
No, Regina sounds like Carolina. And wasn't there like I'm trying to remember, I think it was a Seinfeld episode about, wasn't he dating a girl? I couldn't remember her name, and it sounds like clitoris. And it ended up being Doris.
Regina. Doris. Yes.
Paying attention. Taking irrational into account, I've developed a weird need to make sure I never lose 3 specific objects: a coin, a ring, and a sea lion's tooth. So talismans. Have you ever carried a talisman? I went through a phase of carrying a rock, and I remember carrying a rock with me for a long time. I remember the night that it disappeared, or I realized it was gone, and the pain and sorrow that I suffered because of it. Absolutely.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Like with pocket knives, and I've lost a good few of them.
Yeah. I had a cigarette case that got taken from me that I'd loved.
Cigarette lighters when I used to smoke. I had one that I carried with me for a long time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are tough, and it's an irrational thing. But I think there's something about the ritual of it, of having those.
It was my road to finally giving up smoking. Was giving that lighter away as well.
With yellow feathers in her hair and her cut dress down to there, and her dress cut down to there. I can't even sing it now. Yay, they keep talking over our chat. Yeah, sorry guys. You guys just keep doing what you're doing. Dishwasher. No. All the photos, the memories you don't want to miss. Yeah, that's the thing. The photos. Photos are a great example of one of those things that help you with the continuity, that sense of history, that sense of belonging to something larger than your current memory. I don't know. Yeah. Muchacho in the house. Have we seen Muchacho yet? No, we haven't.
Nope.
Hello, Muchacho. No deal without a dishwasher and a washing machine. Don't need a tumble dryer though. Yeah, true that. Losing all my photo albums would be really, really bad. That's the thing. Put them in the cloud. Well, what do you say to that, buddy? I think we did a good job.
Put them in the cloud. Yeah, I think the cloud becomes a definite option for photographs at this point.
I mean, really, it's so hard. The problem I have with photos in the cloud is that how often do you go back to look at them?
Well, I guess you don't do it so often. Christina has like extra space in the cloud now with her new phone.
Right.
And it's kind of been fun going through all the photos that she now has new access to again because they're in the cloud.
Right.
And they were just kind of on her computer somewhere.
Right.
And they've kind of been uploaded, so we can look at them on her phone.
And so she spends more time with that device, and it makes it nicer to look back at those things.
We weren't looking at them on her computer at all. They were just stored in there.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, I've got hard drives collecting digital dust, and and so I think there's something to be said about. I love those hard books.
Yeah.
You can get them printed, and but there again, you have to go through.
But you have to put them somewhere where they're accessible.
Exactly.
If they're just in the top closet drawer or in a box somewhere in the cellar, you're never going to look at them.
Yeah.
You're never going to enjoy them.
Yeah.
You can like dig them out once a year or once every 2 years when you're looking for something, and spend a day and a half going through the box, going until you find the thing you're looking for.
Yeah.
And then they just go in the cellar again.
Yeah. I guess that's just the human condition, man. All just trying to find some space where we can safely keep our photos.
Verena is very happy that you're her new thing because comment she makes you sing.
When it's Lola, she was a showgirl.
All right.
Okay, I think we did it. That was our chapter on the something you cannot live without, or couldn't live without. I think we did it. Let's move on to chapter 2. Uncle Mike.
So I like this in the promo, because in the promo, you went dabba da booba da 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 boobies. And when I was editing it, I was like, exactly, that sounds like a compliment. I gotta say to you, ma'am, you got lovely boobies.
I think you'll find that all of my gibberish in that promo actually matched up very well with the syllables of all of the translations. It was not as random as you might think. On accepting compliments. So, I hope to learn something in this chapter, because I'm going to say straight up, I have a hard time accepting compliments. I find it difficult. And we'll have some more details on that coming up. But our first question is, are you good at accepting compliments? Are you bad at it? Do you have any best practices? Like strategies? All right, that's the question.
I think most people have difficulty accepting compliments.
It's tough, man.
Because accepting a compliment means opening yourself to somebody, and sometimes these people are strangers, or they're work colleagues, and there's friction involved.
Now hold on a second. What do you mean when you say accepting a compliment means you're opening yourself to somebody?
Well, it's a kind of personal thing. It's an intimate. Accepting someone's compliment is an intimate interaction. Because you're letting them very close to you.
Yeah. So what's the closeness? What is the vulnerability inherent in the acceptance of a compliment?
Well, you're allowing that person to come so close to you. You're allowing their inspection of you.
You are.
They have looked at you or made up their mind about you in whatever way. And when they pass a compliment on to you, you accept their view of you. So you accept the intimacy that they've allowed themselves. And they're passing that intimacy on to you.
Now, okay, I think we're closer to it, but I'm not quite sure we're there. Yes, sir.
Hit me.
I am agreeing with this idea that there is an intimacy. But I think for me, it's closer to this idea that they are not sharing with you an intimacy, they are sharing with you a judgment. It's a very positive judgment, and it's a flattering judgment.
Right.
Because that is inherent in a compliment.
Okay, so you're opening yourself to their judgment. You're allowing their judgment.
You're accepting, not only allowing it, because allowing it is not accepting it. Allowing it is just letting it happen.
Okay.
But accepting it, that's the hard part. That's where we start to have a hard part. And I'm wondering if it's because that judgment, this flattering judgment, in the acceptance, what we're saying is, I agree with you. Or that's the fear that what we're saying is I am going to become complicit in this outside judgment and agree with the fact or with whatever compliment you're saying. And I think that's the fear, but of course, in saying it, we realize it's not actually what accepting means. But I think that's what that intimacy is.
Interesting. I'm not quite sure that I agree with that.
Okay, help me, because we're massaging it.
No, but I think
this is just my working theory at the
But I
moment.
think everybody's feeling might also be different about why they have difficulties accepting compliments.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of space here for interpretation and for personal.
Oh, sure.
Personal,
Like, what is it? What,
in inroads.
if
to
somebody
that, right?
says to you, gives you a compliment, what's your initial reaction?
Well, these days, I'm much more open to accepting compliments from whoever they come from, and there was something that you said just now that kind of rang with me, where you said you're accepting, or you're. What did you say?
You're
Complicit. You said you're complicit in their opinion of you. You become complicit in their opinion of you. And that, I guess that could be, that could possibly, like if somebody came up to you and said, oh, you're so incredibly good looking, and you said, thank you.
You're right.
Then you, that could be construed as
Arrogant.
Exactly.
Self-centered. And vain.
And possibly that's one of the problems with, or one of the difficulties with accepting compliments, is that you don't want to seem arrogant about things that you possibly
have no control over.
right?
So I agree wholeheartedly.
And if
with
you've
this.
worked really hard at something, like not your looks, if somebody came up, you're a really fantastic, consummate actor, right? It's difficult also to accept that compliment as well, for the reason that if you're working at something, it's always a work in process.
Yeah.
But these days, I've just, or like more recently in my life, I've decided to just let people say what they say or feel how they feel, because it's about them. They want to give you a compliment because they feel good.
That's right.
And it's not really about you. So accepting the compliment actually makes them feel good makes them even feel even better about whatever it is that they enjoyed about their interaction with you. So,
yeah.
Thank you very much, and glad you came to the show.
So the trap that I would always fall into, I mean, thank you is the best way, but I want to hang on to that for a second. I think there's also an aspect of status. This is how I see it at the moment. I think if someone gives me a compliment, then there is an inherent change in status, where before we might have been like this, and now this person is raising my status by complimenting me.
Oh, I see. You feel awkward being with the status raised.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so very often, and I think this might be for a lot of people, maybe I'm wrong, but people will often deny a compliment. They'll poo-poo a compliment. They'll say, oh, well, yeah, well, thanks, it's nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that there's an inherent attempt to reestablish the status
equilibrium,
there, the equilibrium in status, because status is a constant kinetic dance.
Maybe it's also the type of compliment that you get. If someone gives you that kind of that gushing, very intimate, very very personal kind of compliment, that does make you feel awkward. Mm-hmm. But if someone gives you a compliment and it's on a level, it's much easier to say, well, thank you, I'm glad you enjoyed it, or thank you for that, whatever.
Right.
And just leave it at that. It's like, I think there's also this lingering thing that you kind of get stuck in this bit of a circle. You'll say, oh, you really enjoyed it, thank you. And then the conversation will center around that compliment and the acceptance of the compliment. And then it becomes awkward.
Absolutely.
So you actually want to say, thank you very much, and
that's
move
very
on.
kind. Yeah, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Let's talk about something else. There's also a thing, and maybe this isn't part of that, but there is a definite difference between how and when and how often men are complimented, and how and when and how often women are complimented. It seems to me.
You
Absolutely.
think it makes a difference?
I think there are very big differences between
Maybe
these.
also
Why don't,
about
before you
what
try
they-
to negate this
No, I'm not
question,
trying to negate it. I'm going to say
Yeah.
for different reasons.
Well, this is my point.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, go with me on try to
going with
support
you.
this idea.
I'm supporting the idea.
Men and women, how, when, and how often they are complimented. And I put it to you that the how is different, that men are more often complimented on their actions and women on their appearance. I would put it to you on the when is in the professional arena
For men.
for men
And the private.
and the private arena for women, and how often is not very often on the men's side and way too often on the women's side.
Yeah, because men want to get laid.
Perhaps. Yeah. Yeah, because
And flattery is a tool.
yeah. And yeah.
So I think there's also a difference between flattery and compliments.
Absolutely. Sure. There probably is. But for the sake of argument, I think there is a big difference. Do you have a specific memory of being complimented by a stranger, not after a performance, or not because of a performance, just for living
anything.
your life?
Just for being me.
Yeah.
No, but I can't actually remember many compliments that I've got after shows either. I can remember one compliment I got after a show, and it was for my appearance, and it was a written compliment. I got this little letter, and it said, "You're really good looking, but you need to work on your acting."
Dance 10, looks 3. I mean, it was the other way around for you.
And it was
looks
signed.
10, dance 3.
You're really good looking, but you have to work on your performance. Signed, anonymous.
Wow. Little does he know, that note came from me.
You weren't in that show.
But I saw it and sent the note round. I hear you, but for exactly that reason, because the fact is, you are a very complimentable person, not necessarily because of the things that you do, but also because of just how you are. You're a good dresser. You are very polite in society. You're helpful. You're aware, and I could imagine.
Those 3 compliments right there. Thank you, Jim.
I could imagine that, somebody like that would get complimented. But I think the fact that you can't really remember a lot of those is to my point. And I'm
Proves your
sure
point that men don't get complimented.
get complimented a lot. And I bet if I asked all the ladies in the chat, how often do you get complimented by strangers a day? I bet there would be a lot more. I don't know what it means, if it's just inherent sexism, or if it's just how that is.
Yeah.
I read somewhere once that men generally only get flowers when they die.
Unless they're actors. Then they get flowers
All the time.
all the time.
Which is very nice.
So what is your feeling actually? How often, when do you most, or what is the most recurring instance where you would like to give someone a compliment?
Well, I wasn't thinking about giving compliments. I think that's a whole nother chapter. But, what do you mean?
Well, you were saying women get compliments for their looks randomly and from strangers,
Sure.
kind of thing, right?
I think so. I'm not
So,
a woman, but it seems to be.
You're
that
not
way.
one of those strangers.
No,
Like,
not
I
for
feel
their
like-
looks.
like,
I don't. It's been a long time since I walked up to somebody and said, "Hey, you got a great ass."
That's not a compliment, actually. That's not a compliment. I think that's the opposite of a compliment.
It's a great compliment. Somebody told you, "Hey, you've got a great ass." I think you would feel good about that.
If you walked up to some random woman and said, "Hey, you got a great ass,"
Well, this is my point.
it's not a compliment.
Well, this is my point. It's not. I don't generally compliment people on their looks. It's more on.
Well, I was standing in the chemist's the other day to get my test, and there was a lady in front of me, and she had a very specific style of dressing. It was very her own.
Right, and she looked
And
fantastic.
she had
in
her
it.
hair in a very unusual
and she was
way.
nailing it.
And she totally nailed the whole look.
She
like
was
the whole thing was just
yeah, I love it.
smoking.
Love people like that. And you said,
and I was standing in the queue behind her, and I thought, damn, somebody really needs. I was thinking, I really need to tell her how good that whole thing works.
Yeah.
It just really looks
Right.
really good.
And so I
but
put it.
I didn't have an opportunity.
Right. So I put
While
it
I
to
was
you
there.
that what you're trying to compliment is not her looks, but her Auftreten. You know, her style, her thing.
it's just
or you look
the whole
fantastic
style,
in that
just-
dress, you know. And I will compliment people that way, absolutely. But it's been a long time since I've walked up to somebody and said,
Your ass looks great in that dress.
that's a different compliment.
I know. Right. So,
But on accepting compliments,
yeah. Getting back to accepting compliments.
let's see what the chat has to say. So we're coming back here. Depends on who gives them. Yeah. The expected ones are easy. The honest ones out of the blue are hard to take in. That's interesting.
Like when you're surprised that somebody compliments you for something that for whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it kind of takes you by surprise and you don't know how to react to it. I guess that's kind of thing what Marcus means. And then you get tongue-tied about it. And then it becomes awkward because you don't know what to say and they don't know what to say, and then you're kind of stuck in this time loop where...
That's why thank you is so important.
Yeah. Thank you and move on.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you for telling me that. Never stop telling people things like that. I'll do that sometimes.
And move on.
And move on.
Move on. Monica really bad at accepting compliments. Okay.
Oh, really? Nah, yeah. By saying no to it. I usually get cautious and a bit defensive, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
I like that. I get cautious and a bit defensive. Nice.
Yeah.
So you're really good at telling mushrooms from each other. Oh, thank you. What do you mean?
Yeah, but I totally
Where did
get
you
that.
come- where did you pop out from?
And especially like in crowds. So like after a show, there is
Sounded
nothing
like
more...
you said, like in kraut, because Follower is German.
Like in crowds. Yeah, like there's nothing worse than after a show if somebody is saying, "Hey man, it was a great show," and you're like, "Yeah, it was okay," or you try to
Because you feel differently about the show.
because either because you feel differently about the show, or because you feel like the status is too high, or because you don't want to seem like a prick.
Yeah.
Or maybe you already think your status is too high.
Or you think you're a prick because you took their money for that shit show you played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
bad
it's-
at it?
it's
Now I
tough.
just say thanks most of the time and move on. Exactly. If it is a compliment about your personality, I think it's well about confirming that you agree and you like yourself as well. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Giving
Right.
compliments is different in different countries, absolutely.
Okay, so it's also how well centered are you on the day that you get that compliment? Like, can you deal with it? Because
I think if we just start practicing that,
How much
if we
do you like
all
yourself
just
on that
say,
day?
well, first of all, that's a whole nother thing. Jesus.
Oh God!
Stop conflating
He just
the
got
issue.
depressed.
Stop conflating the issue.
No,
But
that's what
to
Zuzo was
say-
doing here. It's like how you like yourself.
Yeah, because to say that you agree is also saying that you
like
know,
that bit
and
about
that's why I think
yourself,
if we can just live with that practice, I'm just going to say this for myself then, fuck y'all. I'm just going to really try to practice saying, thank you, I really appreciate it and move on.
Yeah.
Because everywhere else in that way madness lies for me.
Totally. It's interesting the way that compliments are different in different countries, and there's a different, style, or there's a different way of dealing with them. I totally understand where Verina's coming from. That there's that culture of giving people compliments in the US it's like way more
also
prevalent. But I also feel it's a lot more superficial.
That for me is a whole nother question. It's a whole nother chapter. And I've got a whole theory about what the European thinks of as superficialness for the North American, but that's another thing. I think you're absolutely right. In the US, small talk is used as a form of bonding and as defense. And so compliments are a part of that. But it's also, you'll see that
so it's also
in
a
Europe.
form of attack.
Yeah, absolutely. But you'll see this in Europe, in the German-speaking world, in the Bussi-Bussi-Gesellschaft, or in any of those places where the social bond is the most important aspect of that scene. And like, I had a friend, she was a very, very good in real life, just you put her in a room and she's going to have everybody wrapped around her finger. After the third week, maybe there's going to be some polarization, but at the top, she's just, she's great in the room. And her go-to, and she would just do it so naturally. And it took me a few years before I realized that every time she would run into you, every time she would say, she'd be like, "Hey, you look great." And Jack, that's it. "Hey, you look great." And it was the delivery, and she meant it. And you felt terrific, and you thought, "She thinks I look great.
Yeah.
She's into me today. This is terrific."
And if you get the same compliment from 3 weeks running, you start thinking,
No, it took 3 years to realize that's what she was doing.
Right.
That's how good she was at it.
Right.
And because it was so natural.
Yeah.
And so those compliments that come from a natural place are always great. And I think there's also something to be said about that idea that you shouldn't tell children that they're smart, that you should, you worked really hard. So they did that experiment of, they have kids doing a test. Half of the class, afterwards they tell them, you got your high marks and you're very smart. You did a great job on that. You're so smart. And the other one, you did high marks. It was really obvious how hard you worked on that. And that's the best thing, that you never give up on it. And then they have them do the next test. These are kids that have all gotten the same grade, but they've just been told different things
afterwards.
And then they do the next test, and the next test is very difficult, and it's actually a test that they would never really be able to pass very well at all. But the ones who were told they were smart do far worse than the ones who keep plugging away at it, because they've been told that
complimented on
the tenacity of exactly, on the grit of hanging out, not that
they're inherently clever.
They're
or
inherently
solved
clever.
anyway. Yeah.
So that's what happened to me.
Right.
When I was a child, I was a smart kid, and everyone told me that. And then
You hit a brick wall.
because I never learned to work, I never had to do it,
Yeah.
and that's why I chose the job I have today.
Yeah. Nothing's changed.
No, I got imprinted
He's
very
still
early.
he's still a clever, smart, kid in the group. Everybody else does the work.
Yeah.
Getting compliments from women, or so is it easier to get a compliment from a woman for women? So I guess for some women it is easier getting compliments from
I think
other women.
and I think that's indicative of what you were talking about before, that there's no agenda behind the compliment.
There's no sexual agenda behind the compliment, right?
I think that we don't deserve it. We got better at it as we got
Well,
better
you get
at what
more comfortable
you-
with what you're doing, and then it's easier for you to accept the compliment because you yourself start thinking, I'm actually good at this.
Right, which is what I meant about that whole different chapter, is in that idea that we deserve things.
Yeah.
That there's that inner platform that says, I'm okay, and
Yeah.
I believe in myself and my
Yeah.
own shit.
Yeah. If you're centered, yeah, totally.
The
you
worst.
look great. Have you lost weight?
Hast du mich gerade rückwirkend fett genannt?
Nein, du hast mich rückwirkend für die letzten Jahre fett genannt.
Same joke, only worse. Okay.
You look great. Have you lost weight? Yeah.
You look great. Agreed, Verena. And there's a big issue here about being confident. Exactly. Confident or arrogant. And I think the problem with confident and arrogant and being seen as, that's the toughest thing, you know? Once the words have left your mouth, they no longer belong to you. So half of your authenticity is decided by other people. Now you can gauge in the reactions and whatever, but it's really, really hard to gauge that sort of thing, to find yourself, because yourself is never just you. It's you also in constellation with others.
I think what Marcus is saying here about allowing someone else's projection to resonate within you has a lot to do with how are you feeling about yourself, and are you at a point where you're prepared to allow someone else's definition of what you are shape your idea of where you're at or who you are or how good you are or whatever, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's really how comfortable are you with yourself and the thing you're being complimented on. I think the more comfortable you are with that, the easier it becomes to accept the compliment.
Agreed. It depends on the amount of trust you have in the person giving the compliment.
Yeah, and I think that
reminds
really
me
important.
of an axiom that I actually have followed for a very long time and will continue to follow. Never take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, if you can you trust anything the person says? And I think it boils down to compliments as well, doesn't it?
Well, I've been able to understand it and abide by this idea on the criticism end. And it's often advice that I'll give to people, you know, like, especially artists. There's always people who are going to give you advice or have criticisms of your work.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to, you know, block out the haters.
Yeah.
And so my axiom of that, or just my rule of thumb, is don't accept criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from.
Yeah, totally.
And so maybe trusting that person who's giving the compliment. I think, again, compliments are a lot of that projection. And so all we really need to do is say thank you, I appreciate it, and move on. But it's still there. And that resonance, allowing that projection to resonate within you might change, and that's that whole thing. So we still keep coming back to thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think this is important as well. There was Susanna saying is that we're not taught, we're not allowed to like ourselves, or we're brought up to be too critical of ourselves.
Oh man, absolutely. But this is what I'm saying. This is why I'm saying I think we need a whole chapter on this.
Right.
Compliments in language. Catcalling is not complimenting, true dat. And we focus on the negative.
You got a great ass.
But what I'm saying is, if you were, never mind. That's not, wasn't catcalling. Because you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I think you need to tailor the compliment to the person you're giving the compliment to as well. This is something you need to know as the complimenter.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean, I know there's people I know who would be psyched if I said, you got a great ass. Like if I said, you got a great ass.
If you said that to me like that, what?
To you?
To me?
Why do you think I'm talking about you?
Because I have a great ass.
He does have a great ass. I've complimented him on stage several times for his ass.
I do. So I like this. This made me laugh right now. I have this thing complimenting complete strangers' metal t-shirts. Anyone wearing a t-shirt made out of metal should be complimented.
Now we need to get metal Isbaz t-shirts. Man, fuck, we never run out of things. If we do all the things that come up in the Isbaz chat, we're going to be busy till the cows come home, till the world ends, till the sun burns up.
The best compliment from my boyfriend. We were looking for a t-shirt for him with Cookie Monster saying "Born Hungry." And he said, "You need this as well, but with Einstein on it." I like it. Einstein, Born Hungry. Yeah. Breathe and take the compliment in. Breathe and take the compliment in. There's so much of that breathing it in that we all should be doing, but it's so scary. It's really hard to accept compliments from my husband. It's easier from strangers and men than women, but it's getting better. I get the taste of enjoying it. Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's because, one, it's hard for you to accept compliments from your husband because you know exactly what his agenda is. You know exactly what's behind that compliment.
You got a great ass.
You know exactly what time it is when that shit's going down. It's business time.
I think that's actually the kind of compliment she means, but yeah.
We tend to take criticism much more fluently than compliments. Yeah.
Yes.
True that. I love that use of fluently in that sentence, Philly girl. I think we did it.
Yeah.
We've really rocked this.
Yeah.
We're just going to move it on straight away. We're going to take you now to a word to our sponsors.
Look at the faces on these poor people. This guy didn't get any compliments.
No.
This
no
guy didn't
compliments.
like the compliment. She's not complimenting. He gave her one, but she didn't like the compliment. How can you compliment my ass? I've got this great brain, and you compliment my ass.
So that was our word to our sponsor. Yeah, thank you all just for showing up and hanging out with us. That's an awesome support.
It's great that people are. It's great to know that there are people actually watching in the background without joining the chat.
Yeah, it's super cool to know.
I really appreciate that. But just to kind of help us with this, give us a like.
Yeah, that's a
Subscribe
good.
to the channel.
That's cool.
Right?
You know what, Michael?
Yeah.
We're really close to having 100 subscribers. We're this close.
Oh. So what is
You don't
that?
even have to go onto the chat to subscribe. You just subscribe, and then all that happens then is you know that we're coming up.
So our 100th subscriber gets a free set of Isbaz stickers.
Our 100th
Our
subscriber.
100th subscriber gets a free.
I don't know if
set
we
of
can
Isbaz.
see who.
Yeah, we can.
You can see the numbers. You can see.
I can see who subscribed.
Okay, cool. I'm putting into the chat here a video by a wonderful band, a group. They were called Collectivet, and it's a song called "Give Me Compliments." I thought it was
Nice.
pertinent, and we should all see it because it's
Nice.
very funny. All right.
I'm really rocking the tech there, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Wow, first time.
Let's
We need more of this.
move on to chapter 3.
Yeah, cool.
On the decade you feel like you most belong.
So this is, every time I think about this,
Yeah.
one of my first thoughts is, do I really want to live in any other decade than the decade I live in now? Because the decade I live in now
Right.
has the best healthcare.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the president is always best.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's the aspects. The healthcare about the present is definitely the best. And I mean, even in the Second World War, the present was crappy, but the healthcare was still the best healthcare anybody had ever had in the world.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, no, it was lots of people, like Western countries, the US. After the war, other countries too.
I hear you.
But it was that present was really bad.
So I guess what we're asking is then, it's not necessarily on the decade that you feel like you most belong, but on the decade that you most resonate with, or that you
Maybe it's a style thing or a
that you
music
most
thing.
associate yourself with, or you most resonate with.
Yeah. And I think there are different levels of that too.
Well, that's the thing, right? So I think it's an interesting thing about the aspects. But before we get there, same thing. Right off the top of your head, if you had to say, like, I am like a decade, what decade would that be? I most resonate with what decade do you most resonate with?
Maybe the 90s.
The 90s.
I think if I had to go back to a decade and live in that decade in perpetuity.
In perpetuity?
Perpetuity?
In perpetuity?
I can say my words the way I want to say my words.
In perpetualness.
Perpetualism.
In perpetualism.
I think I'd go back to the 90s.
The 90s. I hear you. The 90s.
It wasn't
because it was your 20s?
No.
Why the 90s?
There was no social media yet. And I think social media has fucked up a lot of things about the way that people interact.
Yeah.
And the way that you can enjoy things.
Yeah.
The music was really great. There was a lot of great music that I really liked in the 90s.
A lot of good music in the 90s.
So I'd go back to that. Can't say I can remember anybody dressing particularly snappy. So it's definitely not about that.
Yeah.
And I really remember that. Memorable cars and
That was like
style
when
is
it
the 60s
started.
and 70s. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the 90s, you still had memorable cars, but they were older beaters, and that was.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to go back to, say, the 60s, where I particularly like the cars.
Right.
Because I'm not a big fan of 60s music.
Okay. You're not a big fan of 60s music?
Well, I like lots of music from the 60s, but if I could choose,
Right.
then I'd rather go back to the 90s.
Right. I hear you. On the music aspect.
Definitely on the music aspect.
Yeah, so it's definitely about so all in all, you'd go for the 90s. If I were to say...
And it's that, like the 90s is that cusp for many things where we kind of entered the digital era.
I hear you.
A lot of things that had been around since the 50s, since the 60s, there was technology there was still a lot of old technology around in the 90s. And like after the new millennium, that changed a lot. And,
I agree.
And we got a lot of new technology as well that kind of, just like...
Fucks it up.
Fucks it up.
I hear you. I totally hear you. I think that cusp thing is interesting. I was thinking along the same lines, the 20s is for me one of those times because we're at the end of the Industrial Revolution, but we're just beginning with modern life. Like, it's just beginning that the telephones are everywhere. It's just beginning that electricity is everywhere. It's just beginning. And there's a huge explosion. We know, like in the German-speaking world, you had that golden age of philosophy and art and science.
Music.
Music, absolutely. And all the dancing and the cocaine. So the 20s are, but it's also a cusp because once we get to the end of the 20s, shit goes bad in a lot of ways. The fascism is huge.
The Great Depression.
The Depression is huge.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad shit happening.
Civil war.
And it's
all over
for
the world
me,
coming up.
that's because you've got that cusp area. For me, the 20s are like the last decade, more or less, where magic could still happen without a lot of explanation. Because there was a little bit of electricity magic because no one really knew what it was. So you've got those eras the punks have it, like with the steampunk and the diesel punk and the atomic punk and those sort of eras. But that time, there's like a little bit of magic, and I think the 90s are like that. There's that cusp before the internet went bad, where there was this feeling, this sense of exploration, where there was still things to be discovered. That's why like the late 1800s are such a great time for stories, because there were still islands with giant apes to be discovered. There were, time machines to be built without having to think about fucking paradoxes and all the shit.
The people growing up with bonobos and then coming to live in England.
Exactly. Landing on an island and creating a city in the trees and Swiss Family Robinsing it,
Finding that new technology that nobody had yet.
Fucking even Gilligan's Island had coconut phones and electricity on them. That was, and I swear to you, Gilligan's Island and all that stuff that the professor made, that was all a throwback. Could you call Gilligan's Island coconut punk? I bet you could. There's an argument for that. Michael doesn't get what I'm talking about, but you do. That idea that something could happen, that idea of exploration, and maybe in a few years, we will have that feeling in the digital age, that there was a time where if Neil Stephenson is right and Facebook does, evolve into a metaverse, really, will there be you remember at the beginning where, you still had a chance to carve out a space or whatever it was. I don't know. All right. Yeah. How about this? Because I like your idea of the aspects. Which decade for fashion?
The 40s and 50s.
Into it. Which decade for the food?
Wow. Very difficult to answer. Can't be answered.
Oh, okay. I could answer that one.
You answer.
No, well, you can ask me after. What about aspect of music? You said this one already. 90s.
The 90s.
Yep.
Yeah. Late 80s, maybe.
What about best decade for travel?
Ooh. I'm going to say late 60s, early 70s.
Interesting.
Where international, crossing the great oceans suddenly became possible, but it was a very classy thing to do. Like, it was expensive.
Yeah, sure.
Most people couldn't afford it.
It was the thing that we always tried to uphold until they won.
I remember, I know from my parents telling me that when they met, late 60s, early 70s, it was cheaper to take the ship from Trieste to Cape Town on a 2-week trip with full board, all the food and all the drinks.
Than to fly.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Than to fly 1 day.
Wow. How many stops was the flight back then?
I think it was a non-stop. Well, maybe it stopped in Nairobi or something.
Yeah. Okay. What about
I don't actually know. It probably stopped somewhere, yeah.
Aspect of I just had something. Aspect of drugs. Best decade for drugs.
Best decade for drugs? I don't care, actually.
Okay. What about
the decade where they all become legal?
Right.
And high quality and available.
What about the best decade for cars?
Yeah, I'm going to say the 60s or 70s.
What about the best decade for cameras?
Ooh, also the 60s and 70s.
What about
all that mechanical stuff is actually 60s and 70s.
The best decade for watches?
1962.
Yeah, see? Our boy's
But
a mid-century freak.
I think there's a pattern here. All that mechanical stuff reached its peak
Right.
in the 60s and 70s. They made the best record players. They had the cars. It was all,
And then
it all was working mechanical stuff. Sure, small improvements, but it had actually reached its pinnacle.
yeah.
Right?
And then in the 80s, the
then
first
it
steps
became more
toward
electronic
late stage capitalism and planned obsolescence.
and planned obsolescence.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all I got for you.
So, what is your best decade for food?
Okay, so I think I would go with anywhere between 1880 and 1980.
That's 10 decades.
I would do.
Choose your favorite 10 decades.
I would do 18. I would do the 1880s.
You need to explain why.
Okay, so the 1880s because of all the wonderful not Alan Carr. Who's the fellow I'm thinking of? He wrote the Alienist. Caleb Carr. All the wonderful descriptions of Delmonico's in New York and the opulent food and the yumminess of thick steaks and, lobster and...
This is 1890s.
This is in the 1890s, when they had the waiters and this stuff. But I think also the 1980s would be cool for food because that was the beginning of the star chefs and the... fusion cookings and things like that. And I think there was a lot of experimentation going on in the 80s. That
I was talking
would
the
be
other
really
day
interesting.
about memorable foods to Christina, and there's a couple of experiences that we've shared, and we know exactly what that tasted like, and we like on it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that, and that, and there's like three things.
Right.
And one of them was Cajun fusion chicken we had in Vancouver. It's like the best chicken I ever ate in my life.
Right.
It can't be described.
If you had to live in one decade poor, because we often think of ourselves, what decade would I like to live in?
Yeah,
But
and I'd be the
rich.
Prince of Serbia or
We're
something.
always rich in those decades. But if you had to live in a decade poor, which one would it be?
I think I would live in 1970s or 1980s Europe.
Interesting. 1970s or 1980s Europe
I
poor.
think that was probably the best place to be poor and the best time to be poor because there was the most state funding for poor people.
Interesting. I think I would go with the Audis because I lived pretty awesomely in that decade and I was super poor. I was fairly poor.
In Vienna.
Oh, yeah.
The Aughties in Vienna.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you couldn't have been that poor then. Like, I remember you in the Aughties, you might not have had a lot of money, but you weren't poor.
No, I wasn't poor. That's true. The only time I was really
I took your
poor
definition
was
of
when
being poor is like living off Social Security.
Yeah, but I certainly wasn't rich, and I think that's what I mean. I mean, I don't want to say, I want to be destitute in the 20s. It's not about that. I mean, having a normal apartment. I'm just saying, often in those fantasies, we think of ourselves as having a lot of money and living like Gatsby.
Yes.
But, if you had to be...
The king of Siam.
If you had to be normal... poor in that.
Which decade would you like to be the king of Siam in?
Yeah, let's see what's going on here. There was a lot of. Here we go.
Making a new account to score the free stickers? Yeah, do that.
Maybe we'll get there. The 90s says Verena. Souza says the 20s. Monica's down for the 90s as well. Monica loves the 50s as well. Yeah, see, this was when we were in that thing. Cocaine and dancing in the 20s. There you go. It's def all going down now, and I wouldn't want to live with no running hot water.
Dishwasher. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the late 20s. Mark is in the 50s and 60s. I'd take my dishwasher from now with me to the 20s.
60s music is awesome. There's a lot of awesome music in the 60s.
I don't know. It's awesome. Yeah. 60s. According to my music and TV preferences, 60s and 80s, probably pre-social media area. FOMO made everything worse. My solution, I'll just be in a movie that's set in those times. Yeah. Yeah, man. I think we need more movies set in those times. Then we talk about fear of missing out. Yeah, we fucked up the factoided. Who got factoided? Somebody got factoided.
Everybody got factoided by Pavlov.
What's FOMO? It's fear of missing out. Yeah. Decade for food now, because you can get almost anything, for everything from everywhere. True that. I mean, we are paralyzed with choice.
You can really get everything. Yeah.
Traveling with the Concorde in the 90s. That would have been a fun trip. To have traveled with the Concorde.
The Concorde flew for the first time in the 60s.
Yeah. But they couldn't,
incredible. But that thing was around for...
It wasn't around very long. I mean, it wasn't in actual...
It flew for a long time. And after they took it out of commission on international flights, like the French and the Brits still fly the Concorde today.
Where?
But not for passenger flights. They use it as a high-speed reconnaissance aircraft.
I wonder how many they have.
Like 7.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I never thought about that the reason it went from London to New York was because they could have the sonic boom over the Atlantic. And so it could do all the speed there because it would be constantly breaking the sound barrier. And so that's why it never went from New York to Los Angeles, because they could not get anybody to be like, yeah, okay, we'll take the boom every 12 hours.
In fact, they had to keep moving the spot where the sonic boom happened further out to sea because the people on the east coast of the US just didn't want the noise.
Right. That's why it's so interesting about the idea of these high altitude planes, either doing huge parabolas to get places very quickly, but also that it goes up and it's using the spin of the Earth to help go places. I think it's super interesting.
And also not flying in the direction where it's actually going. So flying up and over, because that's where that destination is going to be once it comes down.
Yeah. And so you can get anywhere. I think it's like if you go to a certain height, you can get to anywhere in the Earth in 30 minutes. It's just super easy.
You can when you're sailing very long distances, you calculate for those things as well. You never choose a straight line across a map for anything. Right. You're always choosing a circle.
Yeah.
Because everything's a circle on the Earth. Right?
It's all circles, man. It's all circles. Well, that's
Concorde, 1976 to 2003. That's right. 1976 was the first Concorde flight. Wow.
First flight was 69, says Father of Clay, but I don't think it was in Betrieb, as it were, until 76. That seems more right. Dude, I think we did it. We figured out all about all the decades.
I finished my drink.
Now, the drink, do you want one last one, or are we finished?
No, I'm done.
All right.
I've got to get up really early tomorrow.
We have to get up so early tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you, Sophie.
We're still working on Sox Talk Politics, and tomorrow we've got a very early day in the studio, and then afterwards rehearsal.
Down the rabbit hole.
And then after that, we're playing a late night.
That's right.
In the Theater Drachengasse.
That is true that.
So if you got nothing happening, or if you're really into two dudes that'll give you a compliment and make you feel good about it, come on down to the Theater Drachengasse to see the English Lovers in the Late Night Theater Jam.
22:30.
Anyway.
10:30 at night, yeah.
That's going to be tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Friday, yeah.
But here's the big thing that we have to talk about. We're not coming back next week.
This is true.
We're
not coming back the week after that either.
And we're not coming back the week after that. It's 3 weeks.
In a row.
3
weeks without a Thursday.
3 weeks, no buzz.
Is no buzz.
Is no buzz. So that's what's happening. Yeah. We're going to have to take a 3-week hiatus because we've got the stuff. We've got Down the Rabbit Hole coming up, and then there's a whole nother thing. So we've got stuff happening.
Yeah. But
But.
everybody who is in the chat and gets on the ISBAZ HQ can hit us up for Down the Rabbit Hole tickets.
That's right.
We'll get you special price ISBAZ HQ Down the Rabbit Hole tickets.
If you want
get
to
on
come
the
to
ISBAZ
see Down the
HQ,
Rabbit
see
Hole.
Down the Rabbit Hole.
Absolutely. And we encourage everybody to go and check out the ISBAZ HQ on Facebook because it's filled with all kinds of really fun, nice people doing all kinds of really fun, nice stuff. Very helpful.
Very helpful.
Very
yes.
creative and very
complimentary.
supportive.
They compliment each other.
Super complimentary.
Yeah.
And we're going to then see you in 3 weeks. So that's that.
Good. We got
did.
it.
I think we did.
So, and remember.
Wait a second. I'm going to call it before any of that shit happens. This has been best ISBAZ ever.
Yeah, totally. Best
Best ISBAZ ever.
ISBAZ ever.
Best ISBAZ ever, guys.
Ever.
Ladies, friends.
I'm going to go to
neighbors.
YouTube. I'm going to write that down there. Best
ISBAZ ever.
Ever.
So remember, no matter what the subject,
Or what it was about.
even if you disagree,
You can always hug it out.
always
Hug it out.
hug it out.
Always. Hug it out.
Hug it out.
Hug it out.
We're going to hug it out.
And we're going to...
See you in 3 weeks, hug. This is a big hug. Hug it out. Post-credit thingy.
Nice hair.
You look terrific in that dress.
I really like your car.
That interpretation of the Star-Spangled Banner blew me away.
You're so rich.
You have got the most kissable lips I have ever seen.
I like your ass.
Why don't you swing that shit around here, baby? Jesus, why do you always have to post-credit
Post-credit thingy?